How's it going, ladies and Bruces? I'm Bobby Sixkilla and welcome back to the Sekimeiya. Let's push through it as quickly as we can because I am ready to move on to the next visual novel or whatever it is that we're going to play, because this has been going on for probably 70 episodes at this point. Let's kick off, shall we? I don't even know what the question is. Let's go with 3. When they went to the office floor, more specifically the second floor, Isla touched the past Sekimeiya in the cabinet. Arcado had set it to 5 degrees, so it had slowly gathered energy. Since the future Sekimeiya was on the second floor, the overlapping ranges created a world switch. Everyone but Shiroya B and Atsuki A world switched to world B. Alongside both groups, there was someone else who world switched as well. Let's go with you. Naomi C was in the lobby, world switched too. 2. Naomi and Shiroya were in the lobby, but only Naomi world switched. That happened because she was still alive. That one. When Isla A touched the past Sekimeiya, the future Sekimeiya was just outside the partitions on the second floor. At least the music's good, which was right above the lobby. This is why Shiroya and Atsuki were the only 2 who didn't world switch. They were in hallway C. When the world switch happened, Isla C had the future Sekimeiya wrapped up deep inside the bedsheet. When it disappeared, she didn't immediately notice. However, what everyone did notice was the elevator panel had reappeared, not only on the second floor, but on all of them. Shiroya and Atsuki remained in World A with the corpses. When they went to the second floor, they saw the single Sekimeiya outside the partitions, which Shiroya was later able to use to return to World B. The moment everyone else world switched to World B, the World B group was in the attic. They had locked themselves in a bedroom. And when the World C group saw the Sekimeiya in the cabinet, Isla unwrapped the bedsheet and saw that hers had disappeared. The Sekimeiya behind the glass was the past Sekimeiya, which the World B group had left locked in the cabinet before going to the attic. Wait, it's still here. Isla rapidly unwrapped the sheet to prove that she hadn't lied. Hang on, it's not here. The thread I left. It's not here. The Sekimeiya. Is this what you're implying? That it was taken out of the cabinet since the thread is gone and then brought to the attic? Then at some point it teleported inside again. I have another idea. Let me take the Sekimeiya. Arcado and Katai, you watch the stairs. Why? Because the last time it wasn't working, remember? I can test if it is now without activating it. Sai grabbed the Sekimeiya with his sleeves and put it in the middle of the sheet. It was very cold, so let's see if that changes. He wrapped it around with one layer of the cloth and waited a few seconds with his hand over it. It's getting hot, definitely. Alright, I'm sure there's someone on this floor. Don't take your eyes off the stairs. I'm not sure we'll find them though. Why do you say that? That time, you said it was burning and you could hardly hold it. Is it possible it teleports when it gets too hot? And the next time we found it, it wasn't working. It could be that. It's working now, but we can test it. If the outer layer of the sheet felt too hot for Isla, it's possible that it's making the sheet hot made it heat up even more quickly. Sai wrapped the Sekimeiya up completely once again. Inside the wrapped sheet, the past Sekimeiya quickly gathered energy. When Sai touched it in hallway A, they world switched to world C, leaving the sheet behind. The future Sekimeiya had been very close, and its range was considerable, as it would soon make Arcado travel weeks to the future. Without realizing it, they were back in their world. They'd made a full loop. They inspected the crystal floor, but nobody was found. Arcado and Isla had remained in World B. However, there were many things they noticed. Sudapo's body had reappeared, and Shiroya's had disappeared, but Naomi was still there. She had returned to her world too, and the blood that had pooled below her had vanished. Oh wait, look at Naomi's head. From the wound she had, quite a lot of blood was pouring out. Yeah, more blood is coming out than before. And it seems like it just started now, right? Otherwise the pool on the floor would be much bigger. They'd all returned to World C, but during the brief time they'd been in World B, Naomi's had been the only body in the lobby. She'd been bleeding from her head, so she left a large drop of blood on the polished floor. That blood confused many people, but the person most thoroughly deceived by it was Sai B. When he world switched to World A, only Shiroya's corpse was in the lobby, and there was blood next to her. Of course, he naturally assumed it was Shiroya's, not Naomi's. However, when he returned to World B, not only had the pool shrunk, but Shiroya's corpse had disappeared. She was still alive in that world. In World C, it became clear that understanding what had happened around them might have been out of everyone's grasp. Nobody had been found, but the bizarre occurrences within the tower hadn't stopped. The security room had unlocked, Edna's body had disappeared, the Sekimeiya had teleported. That time Mia had found it in room A1. It was the fake Sekimeiya, which they decided to leave in the event room for good. After that, things finally slowed down. And after a long time later, Mia had the urge to lie down. She went to the attic where she fell asleep. When she woke up, the world switched again. When she woke up, she realized that Shiroya had world switched. Oh, I see. Whatever, that one. Don't ask me. When she woke up, the light suddenly turned on. That was a sign of a world switch. The exact appearance of the bed where she'd been had changed, but she couldn't notice that, as the light had been off. In the world where she appeared, the sheets had been messy as well. Nobody was above her, and she heard sounds coming from the opposite bedroom. It was Shiroya, who'd been trapped there by Sai. Is there anything wrong with this? That one? Shiroya was locked behind that door. In other words, Mia was in World B. However, the first time a world switch happened from World C, everyone went to World A. The world switch order is A, B, C, A. Why did Mia go from World C to World B then? She never left World A? The reason does not follow the order you're accustomed to. Can you recall another time a backward world switch happened? No. After Sai and Akito appeared in the attic's bedroom, Sai world switched to World A while in room B6. From World B he went to World A. What about a third instance? When Atsuki and Edina returned to World B, they'd been in World C. Once again, they went from World C to World B. Is there anything interesting in these examples share? Exactly, neither of the Sekimeiya were activated in their world. In Sai's case, puzzled, he stepped into hallway B. What had just happened? Out of nowhere, the Sekimeiya had disappeared. He wondered if he'd travelled through time, even though he hadn't touched the Sekimeiya. Something peculiar had occurred. Sai world switched without touching the Sekimeiya, and he had both of them. So then, why did he world switch? Is there another shared similarity? Gathered energy for too long? I don't know. That's not it. Both Sekimeiya had been used recently when Sai world switched. It happened when they were pulled from previous world. When Sai world switched from World B to World A, someone world switched from World A to World B. Shiroya. In the storeroom, she touched the Sekimeiya to return to her world. When Mia world switched from World C to World B, someone world switched from World B to World C. In the event room, Edina, Atsuki, and Shiroya suddenly appeared in World C. In other words, every time a world switch was activated, it occurred in the world someone would be sent to as well. If someone was in the overlapping ranges in the next world, they would be pulled backward to the previous one. This swap begins to define the real meaning of the world switch. When, in an elevator, Edina and Atsuki returned to World B, they'd been in World C. Right, okay, cool, carry on. It was Atsuki A, the person behind the extra elevator sound in World C. He'd been escaping from Sai in World A and found both Sekimeiya, which brought him to World B. He hadn't experienced the Sekimeiya's powers yet. Startled by the burn, he thought both glowing gems had merely disappeared. In World B, he saw future Sekimeiya on the floor of the event room, which Edina had activated. He touched it, and as the past Sekimeiya was still active in Ito's locker, he world switched to World C. He was only there momentarily. After that, allowing Edina and his World B self to return to World B, he took the elevator up. Out of nowhere, the elevator disappeared, and he fell all the way down onto that world's elevator, leaving him unconscious and wounded. That was where the police found him, the only survivor of the incident. The light suddenly turned on. Mia was pulled to World B. She heard Shiroya's voice and silently left the attic. On the crystal floor, she found the past Sekimeiya in Ito's locker where Atsuki had kept it. Despite being filled with questions, my mind was blank. My hand was drawn to the figure that had begun to take shape behind the dark lines, and through the narrow space I made contact, hoping with all my might that I'd be brought to the awaited time. After what had happened with Edina, Mia had learned that travelling to the future with the Sekimeiya was possible. She wanted to be brought to 9 o'clock, out of the tower. Through the slits in the locker, she activated it, and as Edina had triggered the world switch, the future Sekimeiya was powered off. Mia went more than a half an hour to the past and reset the Sekimeiya. Later, when Atsuki B had originally hidden it there, activated it, he only went 40 minutes back in time. Mia appeared in hallway A and immediately fell down, an interesting location. After all, 40 minutes after the point she travelled, she was back in World C. She and Atsuki were running to the event room, which is what made her fall in the past. The replicated location was from World C, but it was applied to the past of World B. At 6:21, Mia found Katai dead. Following that, she noticed the flickering green lights of the security cameras. The cabinet was covered by a curtain. If the Sekimeiya was behind it, it was possible someone else was soon to be on the crystal floor. It was possible. She wasn't sure if she'd gone to the past, She couldn't know if she had gone to the future because she had slept for an unknown period of time. The computer's clock couldn't confirm anything for her. Then in hallway B, she was found by Ed and a B who didn't recognize her. They entered room B4 and found the Sekimeiya that Shiroya had left in the cabinet, which they brought to the event room. When Mia heard Atsuki's yells, she ran away without noticing that she dropped the note she'd been trying to prevent him from seeing. Edna had just reached into Mia's purse to grab the keys, so it remained slightly open. He and Shiroya were there, talking to each other. After Edna joined them, Mia attempted to eavesdrop from afar. They went to the event room, so Mia entered the staff room to listen through the wall. Minutes later, the same world switch that pulled her to World B took place. Okay. She was the fourth person to world switch to World C. With her ear against the wall, both ranges encompassed her too. In World C, the fake Sekimeiya was still in the event room, so it seemed like it teleported into the cabinet. 2 hours remained until 9 o'clock. Fortunately, everyone was able to leave safely. That included Naomi, who was waken up by the loud noise of the shutter. However, a single decision nearly sent everything spiraling into destruction. Instead of the shutter, yells of pain that would have woken Naomi up before that time were almost let out. Disastrous yells that would have shattered everything that had been needed to get there. They were yells that, in reality, nobody ever heard. At 9:04, the police entered the building. Even though everyone was alive, Sudopo was dead on the floor. The officers could hardly believe their eyes while the survivors emerged. 2 of whom knew what had happened. They knew that their lives after the 15th were ones that had been gifted to them. Hopefully you enjoyed this story. It's not made for everyone, but I'm glad you're still here. We're pretty high up. Let's see, you answered 29 out of 92 questions correctly. I hope you're proud of that. Of course, though, there's one last thing for you to see. The peak. Did you think you'd already seen it, maybe? What exactly is at the very top? The crystal floor was empty. Everyone had disappeared a long time earlier. My past self was in the attic. I'd been waiting at the bottom of the tower so that the large range of my past travel wouldn't reach me. It's already been more than an hour. It should happen soon. What will happen after? Are the others going to come back? I've been resting my mind, but the hours that remained were still an unknown area. The first time we changed worlds, did we appear in this world? I've been wondering that for a while. I'm pretty sure that the people we met belonged to this world, but the world that we went to could have been the one we were sent to. They don't necessarily have to return to this one. I realised I had a new piece of information to work with. Actually, I'm pretty sure the world we were sent to was this very world. Sai asked me how Shiroya had gotten into the tower. For him, she'd never been there. I'd appreciate it if you told the truth though. How'd she get in? She was with us from the beginning. That's false. Since she seems to be with you, I really doubt you were stupid enough to make her enter through the storeroom. That's what's strange, but perhaps you did. Let me see. Indifferent to my confusion and rage, Sai walked to hallway C. What are you doing? Instead of answering, he entered the storeroom. Seconds later, he returned. I just wanted to verify that she hasn't entered through the storeroom yet. I get it now. He'd marked the door in some way. He could tell whether it had opened. So he went to the storeroom and confirmed that his mark was still there. That implies that it was this world. The mark existed, as the door hadn't opened since he'd left it. That means they'll return here. Just like we came back to our world, they'll come back here. It'll happen before 7 o'clock. And that's not all. So what time is it? It's 6:43. 6:43. That was almost 20 minutes behind the real time I estimated. That made me think that after travelling, Sai's replicated location had been of 20 minutes prior and his watch hadn't stopped working. Now I'm pretty sure that his watch was a bit more than 20 minutes behind, but it wasn't because he had travelled. It was Sai from this world, who had still had the wrong time from when he travelled into the future with the other version of me. Later, when he returned to our world, Sai's time was accurate again, and I figured he must have synced it using the computer. It happened even before I expected it. Suddenly, I heard a voice in hallway A. Then again, what? But why is the sheet? I stood up immediately to hide. Everyone's there. Edna too, she's still alive. She was a bit closer to the staircase with Issa, and it seemed everyone had just appeared. I'd been sitting on the stairs, so they hadn't noticed me. Sai went to the storeroom. It hasn't been opened again. Fuck, let's hurry. The Sekimeiya might have appeared on this floor. I didn't think this through though. If someone's actually here, there's a chance it'll allow them to escape. Suddenly, they began to look through every room. They're really all back, and my past self was likely already gone from the attic. What now then? I need to have the Sekimeiya for myself. Am I going to be found? The Sekimeiya are in the attic, so I can probably use the future one to escape from them. That wasn't needed. They found the third Sekimeiya, but when they were done, they didn't move up to the second floor. Are they not planning to keep going? They remain below, separate from each other. Why? Why would they search like that, only to not continue? Did they only want to find the Sekimeiya? Maybe I get it. They don't know that the world around them just changed. Perhaps they just looked through the whole building, ending at the crystal floor. If that's when they changed worlds, they must think the whole building is empty. And if that's the case, as long as they stay there, I can move freely above them. Now, I'm sure I'm in the world we once went to. That means I can do everything I want. The end of my plan had always been blurry. After everything else, I wanted to find Shiroi and return to our original world. Sure, that the reality I wanted to shape did exist, I never truly known how to do that until just then. We arrived in this world at 7 o'clock. At that time, I'd been able to meet Shiroi again. She was with us. Her clothes were different, but she was the real one. She'd lived through much more than I had imagined. She'll be here at 7 o'clock, and she'll go to the attic all of a sudden. That's where I'll be. Then, I'll know we'll be able to return to our world. We merely have to be in the middle of the building. When we took the elevator up, it stopped on the 3rd floor. That was when we returned. That must mean that the 3rd floor was being encompassed by the ranges of both Sekimeiya, and someone activated one. If we're there at that time, I'll know for a fact that we'll be able to return. I went up to the attic. As I thought, I'm no longer here. The kitchen was empty, but I could see my footprints on the floor. I'd very recently travelled to the 24th of November. The past Sekimeiya was on the marble countertop, already white again. By its side was the voice recorder with numbers on its screen. 8104. The future Sekimeiya was still in the refrigerator, so I put the past one inside too. I began a new recording. I was about to take the past Sekimeiya back out, but my arm stopped itself. My heartbeat picked up, causing my fingers to jitter on their own. A thought had suddenly come to me. It should be simple. I can travel to November 30th one more time. I know saving Mia is within my reach. She's alive. Then, I have to do what I just thought. I can enter the tower when the 15th comes. I can be in the attic at 7 o'clock before Shiroi appears. Was that really the case though? According to my estimate, it should have been a little past 4 o'clock. 3 hours still remain till 7. My plan had been to use the past Sekimeiya one more time after my past self's disappearance. I could live through November 30th a 3rd time. I could save Mia, as the news I'd read was the only obstacle in that pursuit. In the world I was in, Shiroi didn't exist, but I'd never seen her blood, no definitive proof of her death. Her absence was no real barrier. After that, I can return with Shiroi to our world. The way to accomplish it was by being in the center of the building at close to 7:30. That was how I had to do it. If I attempted to change worlds before that point by using the 2 Sekimeiya, it was very likely I'd appear someplace else. After all, that's how the group from the world I was in had vanished earlier, and I was very confident they hadn't appeared in our world. It should have been doable. I never really considered otherwise. What made my arm stop was the connection I just made. Just before 7:30, Sai had gone to the storeroom to check whether his mark had disappeared. At that time, the door hadn't opened yet. I left the attic. I didn't feel comfortable thinking there. If anyone came up the elevator, I wouldn't hear them, so I chose to go to the 6th floor, where I would hear both the elevator and any approaching footsteps. Of course, my plan implied a future version of myself was in the tower, a version of myself who had been there since this morning. I'd known that, which is why I'd followed the group's movements, so that I could give myself a route to hide throughout the day, aware of where to be at all times. Could that really be the case though? When I thought about it, after having witnessed the whole series of events, my heartbeat grew erratic. Is it? Just before the group left this world, the whole building was searched. Then I replaced the other art sculpture without anyone noticing. Naturally, my future self wasn't found. That would have been a paradox, as I would have seen myself before knowing where I'd be. So, why was that me not found? How will I avoid being found? At that time, every single place was inspected except for the hidden area in the storeroom. However, I couldn't have been there, as my own past self already was. I had thought in the back of my mind, if a similar problem arose, the storeroom's secret could aid me. That was no longer the case, though. My future self merely has to be there at 7:30. It's not exact, but I'll say the search happened at 2 o'clock. My past self was in the storeroom from 9 till 2. Immediately after I left it, the hidden wall was found by this world's group. I thought that in the worst case scenario I could enter through the storeroom after the attack, but that's not possible. As soon as it was found, Sai marked it, and I know the mark will still be there at 7:30, right before we return to our world. In other words, it wasn't possible that a future self of mine would enter the tower after 2 o'clock. More importantly, it's very unlikely this would be possible either way. I shouldn't assume that I could enter through the storeroom without being seen. Technically, I could enter after 7:30 and travel to the past in order to be at the center of the building at the right time, but I don't know whether I'll be seen outside, and if I am, I'll be unable to travel back. I shouldn't go back to the 30th with a plan that could fail, so I have to entirely rule out the storeroom. That meant that for a future self of mine to be present at 7:30, it would have to be in the tower since the time before my past self had begun to wait in the storeroom. Knowing that, how could I avoid being found by the search at 2 o'clock? There's one way, by travelling to the future. When could I have used the future Sekimeiya to not be present at 2 o'clock? After the smoke was released, it was brought to the attic in a suitcase. The next time it was moved was when Katai brought it to the crystal floor with the other Atsuki and Mia. I remember how he looked at it when he had it in his hands. He was in pain because the Sekimeiya hadn't been activated since it had been taken out of the cabinet. If my future self had used it before he brought it down, it would have reset and spent a while powered off. There's no way Katai could have had to hold it carefully like he did. If I touched it at that point, I would have been in the storeroom during the night to appear in the tower in the future. Maybe that's possible, but there's too much uncertainty. There's clear room for failure. I could explain Katai's face in a different way. I could leave the Sekimeiya in a hot place as I touch it. However, both Sekimeiya are in the attic. I'd have to find out which was which, keep the past one in the refrigerator due to its large range, and travel to the future. I had put some thought into the type of web I was entangled in. I considered that, in order to work around what you observed, having observed too much could be a fatal flaw. At the time, I also came up with another concept, thought-up loops, which are fundamentally similar to the way the past Sekimeiya worked. It's uncertain whether travelling to the future before Katai brought the Sekimeiya down will work out smoothly, however, I have a way to know if it will. A cue. If I had a loop in my head, I could know whether it could be completed. If I thought about everything that I would do after touching the past Sekimeiya, I could observe whether a cue I intended to leave would exist. So could I do this? If it works, I'll draw a mark with a pen beneath a drawer on this floor. I went to the partitions and walked up to the drawer I'd selected. It's not here, there's no mark. There'd been clear uncertainty behind the loop I thought of, but thanks to the lack of a cue, the uncertainty could be erased. That loop wouldn't work. It's impossible then. I might be failing to realise the reason that it couldn't be executed. I don't know if it's just a tiny detail. What about entering through the storeroom after 7:30 and then travelling to the past? Could that be possible? If it is, I'll go back in time to a point after 2 o'clock and leave a mark beneath the drawer. If I need to, I'll travel back twice in order to make it to a point prior to now. There was nothing else. That makes sense. That means that I couldn't enter the building through the storeroom without being seen from the outside. I was growing nervous. Mia was alive. Success might have awaited me. But could I be sure of that? It was a guarantee that Mia was alive, but what about Shidoya? The circumstances around her were what left room for doubt. When the future Sekimeiya was brought down from the attic, Katai had used it. And then the other Atsuki inside travelled minutes forward as well. There's no way I could travel before them. But the deal is the same later. I saw what happened to the Sekimeiya. Sai, Arcado and Katai moved them back and forth. But I remember it. No place where the future Sekimeiya was hidden was accessed by a future self of mine. My line of sight unconsciously blocked myself. There's no way a future self of mine was on the crystal floor, and wasn't seen by me or anyone who was there. My future Sekimeiya wasn't activated, neither was the past one. Katai had to go a long time into the future, but even if I were to enter his travel range, I wouldn't go past 2 o'clock. And when the future Sekimeiya was hidden in the mechanical room, the other Atsuki and Mia used it to go to the future. Sudopo's killer brought it to a room in hallway B, where I was enacting the search. I felt the air around it, which was very hot. There's no way I'd touched it before then. So, is it not possible? Was there really no time where I could have gone to the future? I thought of using the past Sekimeiya instead. Its only use would have been to travel seconds back to a room that had just been inspected. However, I also felt the air around it during the search, and it had been even hotter. That path was blocked too. I felt lost. How the hell could I accomplish anything? Travelling to the future before the attack won't be doable, and after the 30th, Ashiya already had the Sekimeiya. The days up to the 15th are useless. It was the owner of that gem shop who found the Sekimeiya. On the 30th, it's very likely they were in that box I saw. But they were taken by the man who released the smoke, and he ran away with them. I know the smoke that was released thanks to the news report I saw, so I can't obtain the Sekimeiya and save Mia together. Not to mention that to appear in the tower on the 15th, I would also have to be there on the 15th of November. I'm sure that after the man ran away with the box, he was caught. That's what Katai told us about, and it's the reason why the Sekimeiya returned to Ashiya. There's nothing I can do there, just in case I need to try it. A loop where I go to the November the 15th and remain inside the tower, then on November 30th I take the box to the Sekimeiya. As fast as possible, I make sure Mia won't die and run away. Then I travel to the future and appear after the search that happened at 2 o'clock. I'll tell the police about the Sekimeiya's location before I travel so they can find them and return them to Ashiya. If this can work, a mark will be under that drawer. It wasn't there. It appeared that couldn't work either. I kept thinking about the events that had occurred throughout the day, in case I could find the smallest opening, but it really seemed like there was no place for a future self of mine to exist. Does this mean that I can't be here at 7:30? That's the single guaranteed way I have to go back. I could change worlds in the morning instead, after Shidoya and Naomi did. That's a lot less likely to bring me to the world I want, though. Maybe there's no way to skip the 2 o'clock search, but what about another way around it? The Atsuki from this world looked at the rooms in Hallway A, then I took his place and looked through the rest of the crystal floor. Finally, Mia and I completed all the other floors. What if my future self was in one of the Hallway A rooms? Technically, that's how I was able to not be found at that time. I told the Atsuki from this world to stay put, and he did so because it was his own request. Could I do the same? Could I ask him to ignore having seen me? I wondered that, well aware of the answer. I recalled the time he'd seen me. I saw my own body stepping in as he approached one of the cabinets. I knew there was only one thing I could do. This is very What? He turned around with a startled gasp. His reaction was even more drastic than when he saw me. What? Who are you? Are you me? I nodded, although it wasn't the entire truth. This is very important. Stay here until the search is finished. The reaction gave me the answer. That was the first time he'd seen another self of his. Could my future self have told him to react that way? Word by word? I didn't think that was how it worked. His reaction seemed completely genuine. Likely, the only way for me to make such a thing work would have been considering it before seeing his reaction. Nonetheless, I verified whether it would work. If a mark was below the next desk, it would. Once again, there was nothing. I thought back to the look in Mia's eyes. It had changed at one point. What if she saw me? What if my future self was in the partitions on that floor? Could he have told her not to reveal it? That felt a little strange. If that had happened, why would her look have changed in that way? I knew the answer couldn't be that I would instruct her to do so. Not only that, but if I stayed in that partition, the reason would have been due to knowing how Mia's demeanor changed. In short, the result would have caused the effect. Well, is that so? I did notice a while ago that there's something special about the partitions on the 4th floor. I'm pretty sure that nobody ever looked at them, neither in the morning nor later in the day. Mia was the only person to inspect them. I spent the day following everyone to know where to be in the future loop. Could my future self have really been there all that time? Could that work? I tested it right away. If I could, a mark would be below the drawer. There's nothing, what the fuck? Once again, it seemed my idea was deemed an impossibility by the universe. For one reason or another, it wasn't something that could occur. You gotta be joking. I'm certain Mia and Shidoya could both be alive in this world, but can I not return to mine? Do I have to hope changing worlds at another time will work? It had to be at 7:30. I was fairly certain about that. If this morning my future self had been in the attic when Shidoya and Naomi disappeared, he would have appeared along with them. Even if not in the same world, I would reunite with Shidoya. I don't think that's possible though. I would have had to be there before Naomi unlocked the attic. When I looked through the cameras, I saw that our past selves were right behind her. Even then, because the range didn't reach me, I'm not sure it would have reached the kitchen. There's no way I could have been in the living room, and I didn't see my footprints anywhere. That's not even everything. I need to be certain that the travel will work because there's no way I'll have another chance. If I intend to change worlds when Shidoya and Naomi did, even if that works, I'll end up in a different world from this one. This means that I'll be unable to leave a physical indication for me to see now. I don't think it would work, but what matters is that there's room for failure. I can't afford that. I'd been lost in thought for a while when someone alerted me. Someone was walking up. I quickly hid in the second partition and saw a single person walking past the glass. Fortunately, they hadn't seen me. Mia? Why is she alone? All by herself, she went to the attic. She'd been yawning, so perhaps she wanted to rest on the beds. The Sekimeiya in the refrigerator, she shouldn't see them. I couldn't get distracted. I had to find a solution to my problem. I attempted to come up with something else. There had to be something that would help me. Well, what if I let the past Sekimeiya gather energy right now and bring it somewhere so that its range reaches behind the tower? I activate it and go a few minutes to the past, knowing that in the future, my future self will be right outside the tower, waiting to be encompassed. If I do that and think that I'll be in the tower in the future, will I appear inside it? Or would I run into the same issue as trying to appear with an item that I can't obtain? I need to test it. I failed to see any cue. Really? Is it just because I couldn't enter the tower by my own means, or is there another reason? There's got to be something else. I could get into the tower through the storeroom and effect size mark. That should have allowed the traveler to put me inside the tower, which would bypass the mark. So his mark would only be affected in a hypothetical world. It should still work. Something else. There had to be something else. What if the Atsuki that Mia has been with is my future self? It sounded interesting. Before that morning, I could have replaced the Atsuki of that world by making him stay outside the tower. Then I could have hidden in plain sight by acting as the Atsuki who'd gotten trapped. Of course, it was an impossibility. I would have observed my own movements all along, giving them no origin. However, if I had thought about the concept early enough, I felt it would have been viable. My thoughts went back to the search at 2 o'clock. I had thought about everything. My past self couldn't have been in the rooms I'd investigated. He couldn't have been in the rooms the other Atsuki had investigated. He couldn't have been in the places Mia had investigated. And he couldn't have been travelling forward in time. Where the hell had he been then? The answer I was looking for had to be somewhere else. I hadn't forgotten about Mia's change of attitude. She'd come out of the 4th floor partitions with an entirely different look. Why? I knew my future self couldn't have been there. So then, what could she have seen? It was clear the way I was handling my thoughts wasn't proper. I had to widen their scope. In the end, only 2 things mattered, saving Mia and returning to my world. The way I was thinking about it, those 2 aspects seemed to be incompatible. How else could Mia be saved though? How the hell could the news I saw be bypassed? There's no other way. I have to go back to the past again, to the 30th. This is what I determined. I can salvage this world's history. Since I'm from another world, I can save this one. It has to be me. Someone who hasn't observed the truth of this world yet. That's the only way. Is it the only way? It is the only way, isn't it? I suppose it's not. Only one part of that is correct. It doesn't have to be me, but the only reason I can do it is because I'm not from this world. Only someone who isn't from this world can divert the world's history from their own. There's a better way to put it. That's right, I'm not the only person who can do this. It could be anyone from another world. And at 7 o'clock, the Shiroya from my world will appear here and go to the attic. She can do this too. Would that make a difference though? Would that solve any problems? I can tell her what I've learned. I can tell her everything. If she went to the past and saved this world, would she be able to be here at 7:30? She couldn't have been in one of the rooms that the Atsuki from this world investigated. The way he looked said more than enough. That means that there's only one other possibility, but it doesn't make sense either. It doesn't make sense. When I looked under the next drawer, it was clear that the universe disagreed with me. Shiroya was here. I almost burst out laughing at what I saw, not only of the absurdity of it existing, but also from how cartoonish it was. Maybe Shiroya had doodled something so goofy looking to elicit that reaction. Stunned, part of me refused what I was seeing. It didn't make any sense. If that was the truth, what was the meaning behind that search? Why had nobody been found? Did it really make more sense than the other ideas I'd envisioned? Perhaps it didn't matter. Success had been assured to me. I was extremely confused, but I felt relieved more than anything. Oh, that's right, the rusty key. That finally made sense. Before I entered the tower, the fact that I'd seen it in the outer keyhole had almost been ridiculous. And I'd felt a familiar sensation. In the few brief moments, swaths of problems still lingered in my mind, slotted into place. At 7:30, that's who activated one of the Sekimeiya. That's why we returned to our world. I stood up slowly, my vision momentarily blurry. After some seconds, I began to approach the attic. I couldn't see Mia, but her footprints were visible. I was careful not to make a sound. The bedroom doors were closed, but it was very likely she was behind one of them. I shut myself in the kitchen. The recorder was still there. Counting up the seconds, it had been an hour and a half since I started a new recording. It must be about 5:30. I'll take the Sekimeiya out at 6:30. It's strange. I know we'll change worlds at 7:30, so I'll take both Sekimeiya out so they can happen. Doesn't that contradict what the universe just repeatedly denied? Won't I allow something to happen because I experienced the result first? Maybe it's something I'm missing. Maybe I don't really understand why it would happen. I suppose it doesn't really matter though. All I know is that it'll repeat. I had to wait through the last stretch. I thought of going back to the 6th floor, but I chose to remain near the timer. The news that I had heard matched our worlds. It was identical to how it would have been without my input. That's why I imagined everything had happened the same way. Then, I realized it didn't have to be the case. The news was the only thing I'd observed in this world. A girl had died and the other hadn't been found. It matched up with what I personally experienced, although it wasn't the end. Seeing as it was the only barrier in this world, I could have gone back in time, saved Mia and prevented Shiroi from being found. That's what I thought as soon as I put together that I could alter this world's history. The news could remain consistent because it didn't need to lead to a single interpretation. I also thought that everything finally made sense, that it was the reason why Mia had been in the tower and why Shiroi had been absent. It fit with the plan I'd come up with, so I thought I finally understood this world. It didn't make as much sense as I thought though. After all, I saw Mia in the tower. I saw the result of a loop before I came up with it. The news hadn't actually been the only piece of this world that I'd observed, and maybe it makes real sense. I believe I know why I saw Mia before I understood how she saved. I didn't step out of the kitchen. Mia must have been close by, but I hadn't heard anything. If she hadn't silently left, she was sleeping in the bedroom. 60 more minutes had been added to the timer. It was finally 6:30. At the same time that I took both Sekimeiya at the refrigerator, I began a new recording. This is it. When the timer hits 60 minutes, it'll be 7:30. I should keep waiting on the 6th floor. I don't know if Shiroi will use the elevator, but if she does, that's where she'll come out. I was about to leave when I heard someone behind the door. Who's here? Their steps approached one of the bedrooms and stepped inside. Is that all? Are they going to stay inside? Pretty sure whoever that was arrived with the elevator. I stood still, awaiting any other movement, but it seemed they would remain there. Wait a second, I might have overlooked something important. Even though I never saw Mia in our world, Edina apparently did. She was definitely there at one point and left that note behind, right? She didn't stay there though, or we would have seen her. That's confusing. If Edina saw Mia, it should have been around at this time. Slightly before it, actually. Isn't she here right now though? There was a chance that she was about to appear in our world. If that would happen, it was evident that I didn't understand the details behind it. Perhaps 7:30 wasn't the only time we were returning would be possible. It could occur earlier too, at the time that I wasn't aware of. If that time was still yet to happen, I had to get away from the Sekimeiya or else I could disappear before Shiroi's arrival. I hid the Sekimeiya on a high cabinet shelf, as keeping them in the drawer would severely mess with the temperature. Then I stepped onto the 6th floor and, like before, I walked to the partitions. If I haven't made a big mistake, she should be here in 30 minutes. If for some reason one of the Sekimeiya is activated before then, that'll cause a world change that could still happen. Since I know will return at 7:30 though, I have a pretty strong guarantee that the past Sekimeiya won't be the one activated. I was so close. It had been more than 2 weeks since I'd seen her. I had plenty of things to say, but I wanted to know her story too. Why would she run up to the attic? Why were her clothes different? What had she done in January? Just thinking about it made the time go by swiftly. The end was truly near. I stood up and walked out. She must have been about to appear. I didn't have the voice recorder with me, but it had been close to half an hour. I stood still trying to perceive the faintest sound. And it came. Finally I heard what I desperately wished for. Footsteps were approaching. What? It wasn't who I'd been expecting. Mia and Atsuki. She'd been with there, staring deep into my eyes. What the fuck? What the fuck? Why are they here? Mia should be in the attic. Hey, answer me. You were really here. Are you really me? What the fuck is going on? I didn't think you'd be here. What does that mean? You're me, right? I am. What the fuck is happening then? I thought it was impossible we'd see each other. Was that wrong? In a way, yeah. What the fuck? Tell me then, what's going on? How the fuck can you even exist? I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to answer that question. What? I know exactly how you feel, I promise. I'll tell you one thing though. Since we've already met, you shouldn't worry about anything. It must be too early. When we appeared in this world, Shiroi spent a short while on the crystal floor. It must not be timing. I shouldn't worry. There's no way you're actually me, right? I am, I promise. It'll all be fine. What? How can you tell? And how would that even be possible? I know how it sounds, but I genuinely don't have time to explain, and I'm not sure I could. What does that even mean? Look, we're the same person, just trust me, or yourself on this. Sincerely, everything should turn out fine. When you heard that, I saw my own body crumple down and my heart ached. I don't want to imagine how I felt. You believe me, right? Like I said, I don't have much time. But that can't be the case. Shiroi died again. Again? What do you mean? Do you not know that? She was killed here and her body disappeared from the lobby. What does that mean? It can't be. She won't be in the tower. This is the same as before. Someone is telling me that the Shirai's fate within the tower is death. Why have so many people said that? It's not true. I've never seen her dead. It must be a mistake. She'll be fine. It's impossible that she'll die in the tower. We'll make sure of that. You should believe what I say. I still don't fully understand how that works, but you have to trust me. You can't explain it? There's no way you're actually telling the truth, right? I am. Well, I can't be fully confident about what I'm saying. I'll just ask you to believe me. Okay. Good. I suppose there's one thing you could do then? What? Wait here a second. I turned around and went to the attic, where Mia should have been. The Sekimeiya is still here. Neither of them were activated. What the hell then? I don't get what happened. There was no time to wonder. After I grabbed the future Sekimeiya, I dashed back out. Huh? Take this, but don't touch it. I handed him the Sekimeiya. You two should hurry back down. On the second floor, enter the second partition. Leave the Sekimeiya on the floor and wait there. On the second floor. Yes, from there, if anyone passes by, you should hear them. If you hear the elevator 4 times, you can go back down and place the Sekimeiya in its cabinet. Make sure that it isn't activated again. However, it's possible that the first time, instead of hearing the elevator, you'll hear someone running up. If that happens, once you hear the elevator 2 times, you can go down and place the Sekimeiya in the cabinet. I wasn't completely sure if Shiraiya would walk up or take the elevator. However, a while after that, they would hear Editor and my past self taking it. That would be their cue to go down. Okay, and after that you're saying everything will be fine, right? Yes. Wait patiently with everyone on the crystal floor and make sure to get out safely. I'll pray with you for what will happen after that. Alright. The other Atsuki didn't waste time. As soon as he said that, he ran back toward the stairs. Goodbye, Mia. I took all I had in me to say that and nothing more. It was a second goodbye. I would never see her again. Goodbye. Oblivious to the gravity of her farewell, she turned around and left my side. Once I could no longer hear their running, I found myself standing alone. I couldn't bring myself to move. If nothing happened very soon, I would have been wrong about everything. When I heard the elevator, all the tension within me was released. She was there. She called the elevator from the crystal floor. I waited, and seconds later I heard it again. Wait, what? Why'd I hear it again? Doesn't that mean it's going to the attic? Oh, that's right, she has the key. I bolted off as fast as I could. She was in the hallway. When she saw me, it was apparent that we'd both been looking for each other. There you are. You did come. I'd forgotten you had the key to the attic. Are you the Atsuki from this morning? Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't wrong. You knew I would come, right? You remembered what happened. I nodded slowly. I was right about everything. We'd reunited in a world other than our own. Have you been here all this time? When you disappeared this morning, I tried to find you, but I was in another world, right? I see, so she really is the same person who was here this morning. I think so. I learned a lot of things. It's been longer than you think since I saw you. What do you mean? You said the recording was real. What happened at 9 o'clock? And why did both of us disappear at the start of the day? Why did we travel this morning? I know the answer. I remember what you told me. You said you travelled to the 30th of November, and that a few days later you touched the Sekimeiya in the tower. Is that right? Yes. That's when I appeared with you in the lobby. No, that's wrong. I know what happened to you. She frowned. It seems she hadn't entertained the possibility. You didn't go to November, you went to the future. What? No, I didn't. I went 2 weeks to the past. I don't know why you think that, but I believe you went to the future. You said that you entered the tower in early December, but I believe that was the 5th of January instead. The 5th of January? That doesn't make any sense. Like I said, the recording was real. On the 5th of January, you were in the tower. That's why when you touched the Sekimeiya, I appeared with you in the lobby. No, how could I have gone to the future? There's no way. With the Sekimeiya, there's 2 of them. No, I saw that too. What do you mean though? I've thought about everything that happened. There are always 2 Sekimeiya, but only one of them made us go to the past. The other one made us go to the future instead. And one of the water tanks sent you to the future, but that wasn't the first time. It wasn't the first time you travelled forward in time. There were others. She looked astonished. For a while, she didn't respond. Are you serious? I am. I've been able to understand the Sekimeiya. The future Sekimeiya made us appear where we were in the past. I believe that could be part of your confusion. The past Sekimeiya made us appear where we will be in the future. And, if both ranges overlap, the world around us will change instead. Oh, that makes sense. That's how I came back. She stared off into the hallway, working with the information I'd given her. When she opened her mouth again, she asked what she most wanted an answer to. So what now? What will happen at 9 o'clock? It'll be fine, we'll be able to leave. She breathed a sigh of relief. Everything could finally end. This isn't over yet though. You have to do one more thing. We are gonna save Mia. What? Really? Can the past really be changed after all? That's not it. The past is set in stone. In a different world though, the past is no different from the future for us. Huh? We can save her in this world. If you travel, you can save her. It has to be you though. What do you mean? I walked to the kitchen. The recorder's timer showed 44:24. That is the past Sekimeiya. If you activate it when the timer reaches 63:14, you'll appear on November 30th. If you're there, Mia will not die. I can't come with you though. If you activate it, anyone in the center of the building will go back to our world. If I travel to the past too, I won't be able to be there. But if it's you who does this, you will be. When December 15th comes, you'll be able to enter through the storeroom. And if you stay in the third partition on the 4th floor, you'll make it back to this point. She looked overwhelmed. There was very little time left, so I was trying to explain everything rapidly. Wait, so I'll be able to prevent her death, and then, at this time, both of us will go back to our world? When I nodded, her eyes briefly widened. The seconds were passing quickly, so I had to make sure I could say everything I needed to. You'll appear on November 30th, where you will be on December 30th. If you think about where you'll be, that's where you'll appear. What? On December 30th, you have to be in that gem shop so that you appear there in November. In the gem shop? I don't think that'll be possible, it was still closed. In that case, right outside it. It was snowing on November 30th, wasn't it? I bit my lip. I don't know what would happen if she were to appear right on top of falling snow, given what happened to me with the elevator's railing. You have to be below the stone roof, where maybe the snow won't hit you, and there'll be none on the ground. Then you'll be able to prevent Mia from being hit by the explosion. That's not all though. There's something else very important. Your body can't be found. Mine? I nodded, although I still didn't fully understand that. Why was her body the one that had to go missing? If the news had been merely followed, why couldn't Mia be the one who wouldn't be found despite her well-being? The only reason it had to be Shidoya's was because I knew Mia was in the tower. It still felt like there might have been something else to all of that. Then early on the 15th, you'll be able to enter the tower through the storeroom. You still have the rusty key, right? Yes. She showed it to me. You'll be able to stay on the third partition on the 4th floor. I know that'll work because after 2 o'clock, you'll go to the 6th floor and leave some kind of indication for me under one of the drawers. The 5th desk from the left, in the first partition. After that, you'll only need to leave it momentarily, at 3:30. If you're in floor 2 and 3 staircase, you'll avoid being inside the range of a travel. The range might actually reach the crystal floor, but if you're in the corner of the building, a floor above, you'll avoid it. Just not in the crystal floor staircase, since that's where I was at the time. Okay? I'm sorry, there's not much time left. 50:06. I had to leave soon to escape the range, and I wasn't sure if I explained myself well at all. Something about the rush I was in felt paradoxical, but I had no time to try and think about it. Let me check that nobody's in the bedrooms anymore. I don't know what happened to them, but someone might still be there. I looked at the 4 separate bedrooms, which were all vacant. Meanwhile, I felt my fingers beginning to tremble. Shidoya was there again, and it seemed as the future finally had a distinct shape. That's it then. Everything is ready. It'll work, I'm sure. Yeah. Can I ask though? Why are your clothes like this? Oh, I put them on hoping I'd come back to the point you saw them. Really? That's interesting. In fact, it seemed to go against most conclusions I'd made. There was no time to care though. Wait, you have the attic key. You should give it to me. You need it? No, but you will on January 26th. If I don't take it now, you won't be able to have it. Because at 9 o'clock today, the police will find you, and they'll take this key from you, if you have it. I need to keep it. And they won't take it if you have it? No. I'd tell you why, but there's not enough time right now. 5 minutes were left until she would travel to the past. For me, it was 5 minutes away from returning to our world with her. I grabbed the past Sekimeiya and left it on the highest cabinet shelf, where it wasn't easy to see. If you activate it when it's there, in the instance that the people from this world come back up, it's possible they won't find it. I see. I should go. I'm sure your future self is currently on the 4th floor. She's been there for hours. You understand everything I said, right? I think so. When the screen says 63:14, I have to touch the Sekimeiya. You'll appear on the 30th, next to the gem shop. I have to go now, but I guess I'm about to see you again. I'm sorry there wasn't more time to explain. Alright, I'll see you. But before I knew it, my body had jumped forward in a sudden impulse and was tightly embracing Shidoya. I couldn't stand the thought of anything going wrong from that point on. Right next to my ear, I felt her surprised breath, and after the initial shock, her hand suddenly tightened up behind me. I couldn't believe what was happening, but I took advantage of it and rested my head on her shoulder. I wished the moment could go on forever, but the clock was ticking. When I let go of her, I couldn't bring myself to say anything else or even look directly at her again. It was hard to turn around, but I had to. With my body still shaking, I trudged to the stairs, aware it was the last time my footprints would be left on that floor. For 63 minutes, Shiroya tightly gripped the device that had been once found in Isla's purse while her heart raced from Atsuki's sudden hug. Her other hand was reaching high above her, close to the Sekimeiya as she withstood the immense heat around her. She hadn't travelled to the past, but she was about to. She stared firmly at the numbers on the screen and gradually moved her hand deeper into the heat. After 14 more seconds had gone by, she felt the hard touch. Light snow was falling on a dim street of Yushibana. Despite the few lit windows, not one of them saw the figure of a young girl appearing by the entrance of a house below a stone roof. She found herself leaning on the cold wall and rapidly looking down. There, she was able to see some of the footprints she'd once left. She traced them up to the opaque door and on the opposite wall of the street. Wasting no time, she dashed over and opened it. Remnants of the smoke were in the air. It had already been released, but it wasn't too late. On the floor, she saw the first two people to fall unconscious, those who had already escaped danger. Behind the shelves were two girls, one was being protected by the wooden structures, whereas the other was an open target. She crouched and grabbed the shoulders of a girl in red, shuffling backwards to drop her behind the shield of shelves. Once the danger was removed, she stood up and looked at her body on the floor. She didn't know the exact time, but her work wasn't finished yet. She picked herself up by the shoulders and began to retreat. A slight sound had caused her to spin around, and her heart skipped a beat. She didn't see the door opening because a wooden shelf was blocking her. However, soon after she heard its squeaking sound, the lights turned off. There was practically no time to react. During the instant before the light came back, the girl closed her eyes and attempted to cover her face with her arms. The floor had been devastated, and she found herself falling with the rubble, the deadly light shrinking as she was consumed by familiar darkness. She saw something shining above and heard very faint shouts. Her entire body was racked with pain, but she was able to stand up. When she looked around her, she saw there was light there too. An egg-shaped gemstone had rolled away and given off a soft glow. She heard a moan laced with pain. Her other self was conscious. She had been holding her as they'd fallen. That time, neither one of them had lapsed into a lengthy unconsciousness. Her friend had told her something very important. Her own body couldn't be found. She didn't understand why, but a realization immediately came to her. As she took a slow step back, she saw her own self awakening. It was difficult to make out, but she saw that the other her was staring at the distant gemstone. That was when she understood that the universe would do the rest, that she didn't have to enact something that was already meant to happen. She stepped back. She knew the way out of there. Meanwhile, the other girl approached the stone. The act of her touching it would be the driving force behind the forthcoming attack on her town. The girl found herself looking out upon a nostalgic view, but the snow was still piling up to form the scenery she'd once seen. Once more she began walking to her empty apartment. But when she realised that it would soon be December 1st, her destination changed. She had once felt a false sense of freedom walking down that path, but the kind she felt the second time was genuine. She knew where the path went. It led to a place she hadn't thought existed, and one that she was eager to reach. I arrived on the 4th floor and looked at the wall on my right. She'd been on the other side of it. Nobody had been found, but she was there. I opened the door to the last partition. It's been a while. Yeah. She rose from her chair she'd been sitting in, but she looked worn out. Although I just left the attic for her, that had happened 15 days in the past. Did everything work out? Before she could answer, we heard a noise. It sounded like the elevator had opened. But he's here. Has it been enough time already? I'm bleeding. I looked at Shiroya. We were back. It had really worked. That was happening on the 3rd floor, near the staircase. Our past selves had returned too, although they were unaware of it. Their voices had hardly reached us, but I could understand them, since I knew what they were saying. That's not bleeding. That's right, my past self was waiting outside the partition. After having travelled to the past, right now Shiroya's in the attic and Sai's on the crystal floor. What were you going to say? Everything did go well, but I saw Mia earlier. She came in here once, and I'm pretty sure she saw me. She didn't say anything though. I almost froze in the shock, but before I could react, she'd already left. Really? She nodded, still puzzled. So it really had been like that. It happened just as I'd imagined it. I didn't get it. I'd known she wouldn't be found thanks to the drawing under the drawer. Before seeing it, I hadn't come up with a reason to explain why Mia hadn't found it, but at that point, I'd realised that one wasn't needed. If she simply stayed there, she wouldn't be found. I still couldn't understand what had happened. What about the you from the other world? Is she okay? Yes, she wasn't found at the site of the explosion, but she wasn't harmed. Why couldn't she be found? To match the news report I saw, I did travel to November 2, before you did, but I failed to accomplish anything. I know I saw you at the hostel. I thought about staying there in case someone found me at my apartment. You were there? By the way, what keeps happening to your clothes? They're the ones you entered the tower with again, but you didn't have them with you when you went to the past. Oh yeah, they're the ones from that world. I see. Ah, that time right before 9 o'clock, I think I did think something about her looked strange. It was so late into the day I hadn't realised it was a complete lack of smoke on her clothes, and her pendant is gone too. The thing that tied her with Mia disappeared when she went to the future. She took a digital watch out of her purse. You brought a watch, that's smart. It's 7:37. Shidoya pointed out very faint footsteps coming from the other side of the wall. Although I hadn't noticed them, I knew she was right. That's us. Myself, Sai and Edina. We're going to the attic. They went around the floor and disappeared up the next staircase. Now what then? I don't know what happened at the end. Let's go down first. I need to do something very important. Okay. I had very little strength within me, and Shidoya looked dizzy when she moved. We took our time walking down, knowing full well that there was nobody left beneath us. Let's go to the security room. Katai's dead body was there, filling the room with a stench I'd forgotten about. The monitors were working, which meant that someone had been there 50 minutes previously. Although it was slightly strange, I could barely bring myself to care. Actually, I bet I know why. Only Sai could use the computer, and not too long ago, he travelled to the past in the event room with Shidoya. That would have disabled his watch, but the next time we saw him, it was working. Every time that happened, he must have come here to sync it with the computer's time. There was a drawer with a bunch of batteries. What's that? A USB drive I brought to the tower in the other world. I have enough to put Katai and Arcado in jail with the footage on this. Once the computer detected it, I saved 2 copies of the file. The normal folder with the saved footage was nowhere to be found, so I left them elsewhere. If necessary, I would tell the location to the police. Then I left the drive behind in one of the drawers so that it could also be found. By the way, you left the rusty key outside the storeroom, right? Why was it? Was that so that it wouldn't open from the inside? Yeah, that's what I thought. Not completely sure how much sense it makes yet, but there's nothing I can do to fight it. I have to leave the rusty key here too. By the way, there's still a slight problem. I'll need it on January 5th, and since you gave up yours, you'll also need this one on December 30th. Oh, I guess so. I looked under the desk. A Sekimeiya was there. This is the past Sekimeiya. My past self travelled with it very recently to the staff room, and Sai brought it here. Doesn't have a lot of power right now. I left the rusty key on the floor in hallway A and closed the door. We need to duplicate it, otherwise we won't be able to have it on those days. She didn't seem to know why that was the case. I'll go a very short distance back in time, one last time. Since I leave the key outside this room, my past self will be able to grab it and have it in the future, but since that'll let me appear with it, I won't have to really grab it, which will duplicate it. That actually work? Yeah. As soon as I leave, open the door. Alright. I step back and touch the Sekimeiya. The light went on, but I knew where I was before I looked around me. The mechanical room. I confirmed that the rusty key was in my pocket. When I went to hallway A, I saw it on the floor too. I didn't have to wait very long until the security room opened. There we go, now we have 2. Take this one. The movements of the rusty key were interesting. Shidoya had found it on January 5th in our world. Then she travelled to December 15th and still had been holding it. Later, she travelled from November 30th and still been holding it. However, she'd used it to lock the storeroom from the outside in the other world, which meant it couldn't be recovered. When we talked, she told me about its location, so I'd be able to find it in the other world's security room as well. That was the key that we just duplicated. However, it was the one she ended up with, and it was the one that she would have on January 26th. In other words, when she appeared with it on the 15th, she hadn't been holding the same key that she'd found. The fact that she'd have to leave it outside the storeroom had made it transform. What she'd appeared with had to be a mesh of both. To obtain that key, both had been needed. In a single instant, it had changed from the key of our world to the key of another world. The powered off Sekimeiya was on the floor, so I put it back where I'd found it. There was no reason to do otherwise. We need to go to the mechanical room. The others will come back soon. It's 7:45. I'll travel to the past zone. Sorry, to the future. Yeah, they must be coming down already. So, have you enjoyed the Eagle Hostel too? Have you stayed at the Eagle Hostel too? Yes, I was there until today. I didn't realise the owner wasn't a native. We heard people above us. The group was beginning to wait near the shutter. Will it be fine if we stay here? Not quite. Once you leave for the bathroom, they'll search everywhere for you. Wait, they're gonna see us? They can't, right? No, if my past self saw me, it'd be a paradox. But there's no simple way out of this. The future Sekimeiya will be powered off, and sails stay right next to it when it repowers, and the past Sekimeiya will send us too far to hide, since it'll build up energy until your past self leaves. I doubt touching it twice will work, due to the powered off time. It was a very similar dilemma to the one I faced when searching the drawers for a marking, however the answer was much clearer. I need to be found then. If they find me, the search will stop before you're found. I nodded in the darkness. That's what you said, right? That was why I was still here even after I travelled from the bathroom. Yeah. But what about 9 o'clock? The shutter won't move, will it? No, it will. What? Did you say that the recording was real? Yes. But before the exit opened, we went to the future. We appeared on January 5th where the recording occurred. So, if you're out of that range, you'll stay here and be able to leave. Oh, that's what happened. Where will the range be? Here. Just before 9:05, Edna is going to activate it. The future Sekimeiya has yet to be brought in. It won't be a normal travel though. When she touches it, she'll trigger a chain reaction that'll bring us to January 5th. We'll go 20 minutes to the future repeatedly. Curator will appear a bit later because he travelled directly from today to January 5th after escaping from the bedroom with Sai. Wait, a chain reaction? Do we just have to avoid being here when that happens? Not being here 20 minutes before it's activated will also avoid it. It won't be so simple though. Only you'll be able to do that. Why? The people above us will search for you soon. They'll find you, and the shutter will open. You can leave this place. I can't do that though. There's something very important that still has to happen. On January 5th, I'll have to be in the tower in order to appear on November 24th for the Sekimeiya. If I stay here, I'll travel to the future one more time. That's when I'll finally be able to leave. Can't you just enter through the storeroom on the 5th? No, there are a few reasons why I can't. The 5th is 21 days away. It's possible to get out today and prevent me from being in the tower in the future. I don't know what the police will do. If they find any evidence that incriminates me, being here on the 5th might not be possible. I'm sure my parents will keep trying to make me leave with them too. Staying here is the only way to guarantee it. And it's what I thought I'd do, before I touched the Sekimeiya. Technically, I knew you'd be in Yushibana on January 26th, but my parents had spent the previous 2 weeks telling me to go live with them. I feared they would give me no option after what had happened in the tower, and force me to leave town until after January 5th. There are more reasons too. If both of us leave, the attic key will be taken from us, and we need it on the 26th. Leaving it somewhere until the 5th is too risky, so I can't bring it there myself. You're right. When I travelled to the 15th, I had the attic key, but the cabinet key was the only one that wasn't in my purse. I still don't get that. The cabinet key? If the police found you with it, they would take it, so the only way to get it on the 26th would be doing the same thing as at the attics. Did you ever need to unlock the cabinet? No, I don't think so. I see, that's why then. There's no reason to bring it to the 26th, so you don't appear with it. Wait, so can't I do the same? We can both travel to the 5th. That's not true. On November 30th, you'll appear outside the gem shop, right? Yeah. So on December 30th, you'll be outside the tower. That's why you can't stay here. Oh, I see. It'll be fine. It'll just take a little longer. Yeah. You can stay at my house too. At least you'll be with Maxie and Umi. You were on January 5th once already, right? Was the town not open? No, I don't know why, but it seems it won't open again after today. Yeah, that's what I thought. There was a mountain of things I wanted to tell her, but we went silent for a while. Both of us were even more tired than we appeared, and we had to speak very quietly. Everything we'd gone through since we'd stepped into the tower was like an endless expanse of tangled web. I could hardly even recall what things had been like before I knew what the Sekimeiya were capable of. But we had taken that day to its conclusion. Without any doubt, we were going to make it end. People had died in horrible ways. I didn't expect that the outside would ever learn the full truth of what had happened within the tower, but at the very least, Shiroya and I knew. We'd built a better reality out there, through our own actions. Surprisingly, I wasn't sad that the world where we had saved Mia wasn't our own. Ours wasn't perfect, and I had no idea what had awaited us in the future, but all I wanted was to step outside with Shiroya. They'll leave soon. There's only 40 minutes left. Yeah, they'll go to the attic and come back down. By the way, can I borrow your watch? It'd be useful to have it. Take it. Thanks. Our wait was short. When the time came, we heard the group walk into the hallway. I guess I'll go too. Alright, I'll see you soon. Are you gonna stay here? You won't be seen. I'm sure I'll be fine. Okay. I'll see ya. Her shadowy figure slowly faded up the stairs. I recalled the time we'd found her drowsy in room A1, and the words she'd told me in hallway C. They were words I'd hated before, but they'd grown to bring me happiness. Next time I heard sounds above me, she was already with them. I stayed behind the piled furniture in the corner of the room. Like I'd expected, a single person came down soon after. I couldn't see who they were, but it must have been Sly. He seemed to be looking around in the dark. I feared he would find me, until his movement slowed down. He kneeled under a table and stopped. Maybe he's looking for a good place to hide the Sekimeiya. Did he find one under that table? Doing my best to conceal my breathing, but he remained there for a long time. Finally, he seemed to decide he was done and walked up the stairs. I hardly had time to exhale before he was back. There was a glaring difference. The area between his hands was glowing. Once more, he kneeled under the table and ran back up the stairs as soon as he was finished. The Sekimeiya wasn't simply on the floor. From what I could see, he'd tucked it just under the surface of the table. There seemed to be a tiny space where he left it. Now my past self will find the Sekimeiya in the security room, and we'll all wait out the last few minutes in the lobby. I stared at the glowing numbers on the watch until 9:01 came. At that point, someone began to carefully descend the stairs. While I couldn't see their face, I knew it was Edina. She stood still until something caught her eye. Perhaps Sai thought he'd found a good hiding spot, but he hadn't factored in the mechanical room's darkness. The faint illumination gave it away after Edina looked around a little. She approached it and crouched. Her figure covered the light and suddenly it was gone. But, however, Edina was still there. Her outline had disappeared because the light had moved. The faint ceiling light had turned off and the Sekimeiya's glow couldn't be seen. I hadn't felt anything myself, but I knew. I was on January 5th of 2012. Since she'd been in the mechanical room during both recurring locations, I'd travelled seamlessly. And as my vision was more adjusted to the darkness, I could make out a few pieces of furniture had moved slightly. Oblivious, Edina crawled out. To her, the Sekimeiya had simply disappeared. Then she walked to the stairs, likely thinking that she'd travelled to the past. It's still there. The Sekimeiya's on the floor. It rolled up to the wall. Hey, what's going on? At that time, when the door to the lobby opened, light didn't fill the stairs. The whole building was devoid of it. The watch still showed 9:03, but it was far from the real time. I could hear the others shouting above me. The shutter wasn't opening. I can't get out yet. I'll need to have both Sekimeiya after the watch shows 10:30. I was forcing Shiroya to wait, but I had to stay here a little while longer. When 9:50 came, I approached the stairs. At that time, my past self travelled to the past. That meant that the others were soon to notice my absence. I grabbed the future Sekimeiya and stepped up the stairs. I could no longer see the walls of the lobby, but unfortunately, I knew I'd have to see them once more in the future. I couldn't shake off the anticipation of stepping out, even though I'd already left once before. It didn't feel like it. I walked to the crystal room, the past me had travelled from, B5. After feeling the floor, I realised that the powered off Sekimeiya was there. For the time being, I went to the crystal room at my right, and put both inside the temperature regulation cabinet, setting it to where I believe 0 degrees was. It seemed the curtains were all still raised. I could have gone to the attic, but the last thing I wanted was to have to explain myself to anyone. My sole desire was for the final few minutes to elapse. I walked to the lobby. I could feel the shutter with my hands. I waited patiently all day, but I couldn't take it anymore. I needed time to move faster. The goal was right there, and I was the only person who knew. Minutes after I started staring at Shiroya's watch, I heard voices in the far hallway. Ski, where the fuck? I kept looking down. It was already past 10 o'clock. Wait, are they actually searching for me? Sai's yells got closer and closer. It seemed he was looking in every room. This piece of shit, the Sekimeiya's not in the cabinet. Fuck, there's no way you'll find him, right? Look, I found the Sekimeiya. What? No, that's the third one. He'd found it in another room in hallway B. He had plenty of energy to spare, as I heard him running to the event room and leaving it there. Fortunately, that caused him not find the real ones. Atsuki, I know you're here. I didn't move. The darkness is all I needed to stay hidden. He went to the mechanical room. Maybe he noticed the Sekimeiya was hidden. He'd hidden was no longer there. But he didn't say anything. Afterward, he walked back with the others. Akira was there. Hopefully the recording of him had been obtained by the police. Either and Isla were the last two. Their stories had been tragic in different ways. They were together again, but it was possible that Edina would never understand that the Isla she'd entered the tower with was gone. What's going to happen with him? The police must have found her corpse, but no, now they'll see that she's still alive. I suppose the case is similar with Naomi. I felt their voices fading. They were going back up. Now that I think about it, it was when I travelled at 9 o'clock that my hand injury disappeared. Even though I only went 45 minutes to the past, it took me many days to reach the proportional future. Right now, I have Shidoya's watch and rusty key. When I was briefly at 9 o'clock, I might not have realised that. However, after Shidoya had made me travel to the 15th, there's no way I had them. I suppose that makes sense, since the location was based on a point much further in the future. It's still a little strange though, because Shidoya did have the rusty key. I stopped myself here. I didn't really care anymore. No matter how many details had flown far over my head, I didn't care about any of them. I stood there for what seemed like hours, but eventually, 10:30 came. I tried to force myself to breathe properly. It wasn't over yet. In the staff room, there was a keyring that I needed, and I could obtain. I already had it in my pocket though. I forgot that I needed to go to the attic. I thought I'd never see that place again. When I thought up the loop to appear on November 24th, I'd imagined appearing with the Sekimeiya in a suitcase. The one in the security room was locked away, so I had to get the one on the attic sofa. I left the watch behind so it wouldn't cast any light and gradually ascended. Every floor was dark and my steps echoed more loudly than I liked. Once I reached the highest floor, I saw the living room was empty. I was leaving my footprints behind, but it didn't matter. Once I'd taken the suitcase, I dashed back, leaving that place for good. I took both Sekimeiya from the cold of the cabinet with my bare hands. The instant I activated them, I travelled to the smallest fraction of time. Enough for it to have no real effect. With the suitcase in hand, I descended to the lobby and sat on the floor. Then, I put the Sekimeiya inside it and placed both my hands on them. I suddenly realised the key had fallen from my pocket before I'd even taken it out willingly. That had been my plan before I'd gone to the 24th. I wanted to appear with the Sekimeiya, but for that, they had to be powered off in the future. It was very hard to calculate the exact sound that I needed to have them. So the position I was in was a good way to cover a longer stretch of time. Every time a Sekimeiya was powered on, my hands would immediately power it off, resulting in no effect whatsoever. Furthermore, they emitted no light, so nobody could see me in the dark. However, I'd calculated enough. I only had to be there for 10 more minutes. Over the last 10 minutes I'd spent trapped in that place. The suitcase was on my lap and both of my hands were planted firmly on the Sekimeiya's surface, too far apart to overlap their minuscule ranges. It was the end. I knew I was in the position where I'd appear on the 24th. I couldn't check the time anymore. The watch was hidden behind the reception desk. Instead, I counted the seconds inside my head. She's there right now, I'm sure. Time had passed. It hadn't frozen. It hadn't forbidden me from taking the final step. I closed the suitcase and stood up, grabbing the fallen key. Before anything else, I went to retrieve Shidoya's watch. I opened the hallway A door. Each step I took toward the storeroom was more surreal than the last. I took out the rusty key and suddenly understood why I wouldn't have had it on the 26th. I was there. I could feel the dusty couch and the wall wasn't blocking my way. With bated breath, I approached the final door, the one that could only be opened from the outside. And it was open. Is that it? Did we do it? Is it game over? Is it credits? Come on, credits. This episode went a lot longer than I expected. I apologize for the long one, but final episodes are always very, very long, aren't they? At least they are when I do them. Alrighty, we did it. Sekimeiya is done. Finished, kaput. I said I would finish it, and I finished it. Production value was great, music's great, it looks great. The writing was a bit overdone, frankly, in my opinion. It was fucking hard to follow, especially late in the game. And by fucking hard, I mean impossible. Like, I didn't follow it. By the end, when it was asking questions and stuff, I just wanted to get through it, you know what I mean? It's a little bit too long as well, you know? But, you know, you can see that the production value is in there. They put a lot of effort into it, and everything looks good. The music's fantastic, and yeah. More importantly, I said I would finish Sekimeiya because you said nobody else had finished Sekimeiya on YouTube, so I finished Sekimeiya on YouTube. God damn it! I don't know if there's going to be a post-credit scene, but I'm going to peace out for now, and I'll be back if there's a post-credit scene. But one way or another, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one. Atsuki, you son of a bitch, open the fucking door. I know you just left. I heard you talking with Shiroya. You better come back right now. Atsuki, piece of shit. I'll convince everyone this is all you're doing if you don't open this fucking door. At least tell the police we're here. I'm fucking hungry, man. I don't think he's coming. Can you just shut up? Atsuki, you think I won't tell them that you left with the Sekimeiya? This is your last chance to come back. Atsuki! Fuck that guy. Words and phrases coloured in red. Extra information on matters not covered by the main story and solve lingering mysteries. Oh, one of them serves as the epilogue for Shiroya's story. Interesting. Norb is used when an inline tip is not viable. This could be to explain the setting, the chapter name, and so on. Cool. While in a tip, saving and search jumps are disabled. A flowchart that follows every character in each of the 3 worlds is unlocked. You can highlight individual characters and follow their path. Additionally, you can view the location of the 3 Sekimeiyas at all times. Access the chart by clicking the new chart button on the menu. That's cool. Very cool. The gallery and stat screens have unlocked. Cool. I don't care about that one so much. I want to see that flowchart though. Can we look at that before we wrap it up? I really like flowcharts. I suppose it's only in-game anyway. Oh well, we'll wrap this one up here. We done. Bye.